Okay. So I think we will go ahead and get started. Looks like there's a bunch of people here. This is great. It's good to have everyone here. So welcome to the info session for the SS4 RFP, Gender-Based Violence System Navigation and Mobile Advocacy. My name is Jamie English and I am the RFP lead. You will see my contact information within the RFP. I am also joined here by Bianca Davis, the Resilient Communities Team Lead, and Nafiso Igal and Dino Sieve, my fellow program managers for the team, all supporting this RFP work. The agenda for today, we're going to talk a little bit about the Veterans, Seniors, and Human Services Levy, or the VSHSL, as it is sometimes referred. We will talk about the gender-based violence strategy and RFP and the details around that. We will go over grant assistance that is available, and we'll be taking a look at Zoom grants as well. And then there will be time for questions at the end. And please submit questions in the chat as you have them throughout the presentation, as well as at the end, because as I said, they will be posted in the FAQ on Zoom grants, and any other future questions that you may have, if you contact me, email me, they will also be posted in Zoom grants for this RFP. So a little bit about the Veterans, Seniors, and Human Services Levy. The VSHSL is a voter-approved 6-year property tax levy. Over the years, the VSHSL has been able to provide adaptability and support for those who may not otherwise be able to access services. Funds are allocated across the levy's 3 priority populations. Those include veterans, including military service members and their respective families, seniors and their caregivers, and resilient communities, along with the new regional impact initiatives that affect all 3 populations. This levy pursues 5 overarching result areas: housing stability, healthy living, financial stability, social engagement, and service system access and improvement. And this levy has been active since 2005. Couple quick facts about the 2024 to 2029 VSHSL. Recently, the 6-year property tax levy rate of 10 cents per $1,000 of assessed value was approved with the King County Proposition 1 by more than 71%, which is great. It started in 2024 and is expected to generate approximately $551.3 million in revenue between 2024 and 2029, according to the King County Office of Economic and Financial Analysis's August 2023 forecast. This approval continues the levy's expanded scope for the 2024-2029 levy period, which includes seniors and their caregivers alongside veterans and human services needs. The VSHSL offers connection and community by connecting providers, programs, and people, and is a critical funding source that supports services to improve overall health and well-being of priority populations, create thriving communities, and reduce disparities throughout King County. Equity and social justice impacts and considerations are incorporated into the planning, policies, and assessment of the effectiveness of all services. The goal is to ensure that all people, regardless of who they are and where they live, have the opportunity to thrive with full and equal access to opportunities, power, and resources. So moving on to the overview of the strategy, the SS4 Gender-Based Violence System Navigation and Mobile Advocacy Strategy will fund community-based organizations to create and operate a network of advocates equipped with flexible financial assistance for adult survivors of gender-based violence, human trafficking, and commercial sexual exploitation. This consolidates two previous strategies, which were survivor-centered mobile advocacy for survivors of domestic violence and sexual violence, and countywide commercial sexual exploitation, or CSE collaborative. This consolidation came out of recommendations from the 2022 VSHSL assessment report to support programs that meet the self-identified needs of survivors of gender-based violence, center the voices of impacted populations, and reflect those voices in programming that respects their self-determination, agency, and dignity. The needs of individual survivors vary considerably, requiring unique, individualized combinations of housing, health, legal, financial, and emotional support. Mobile advocacy creates the conditions for culturally responsive care and the ability of organizations to respond to the unique needs of individuals and communities with geographic and cultural barriers, including to survivors in rural areas and culturally specific communities such as survivors who are immigrants or refugees. Efforts will target 4 key areas of need experienced by survivors of gender-based violence. These are substance abuse, substance use treatment, housing stability, employment and assessment, and treatment for complex trauma, post-traumatic stress disorder, and other mental health diagnoses. The scope of work has blended the work of both previous strategies, and funded agencies must demonstrate that their programs will do the following: provide robust, direct, flexible, and mobile survivor-centered support and outreach, provide flexible financial assistance to meet survivors' immediate needs related to safety, physical and mental health, and stability, support survivors through systems advocacy, including and not limited to impacts of the criminal legal system, medical systems, financial empowerment, housing, education, employment, child welfare, and other government systems and appropriate services. Services must be conducted by culturally and linguistically competent staff with experiences and community relationships to effectively center adult survivors. So for more of the overview of RFP regarding outcomes, performance measures will be the number of survivors served and the percentage of survivors who are able to improve their situation and achieve self-determined goals. The goal is to support survivors and improve their self-determination, safety, health, and stability. Progress towards these outcomes will be measured by data collected from agencies, as has been for previous contracts funded by the previous strategies. Thank you. Adults experiencing gender-based violence, human trafficking, and commercial sexual exploitation are the priority populations of this RFP, with a focus on those disproportionately impacted by systemic marginalization, such as Black, Indigenous, and people of color, and immigrant and refugee communities, as well as adults with disabilities and LGBTQ survivors. So for funding information, the total funding from the project start date of November 1st, 2024 through the end of 2029 or December 31st is $15,725,132. So regarding eligibility, Eligibility is open to for-profit and nonprofit organizations, community-based organizations, tribes, tribal organizations, and public or government agencies serving communities within King County. Applicants need to have a minimum of 1 year experience working with adults who have experienced gender-based violence, human trafficking, and commercial sexual exploitation, and timely submission of the completed application within the scope of work as outlined within this RFP is a requirement to eligibility as well. The contract requirements. So while you are not required to submit a detailed evaluation plan as a requirement with your submission of the application, it is important that your program model and data collection and reporting are consistent with this strategy's anticipated performance measures. This is all detailed within the RFP. The billing will be flat monthly payments, and contractors will also be required to submit a general ledger quarterly for budget to actuals reconciliation. The timeline for this RFP. The final day to request technical assistance will be July 24th. The final day to submit questions, which, as I mentioned before, will be posted to Zoom grants in the FAQ section, will be August 1st. RFP proposals are due on August 8th. Proposals will be reviewed and rated in August, and award notifications will be in September, with contracting beginning in November. So for applying to this RFP, again, proposals must be submitted by 2 p.m. on August 8th. Complete submittals will include the responses to summary questions, responses to narrative questions, and the budget. These are all attachments that you will see in Zoom grants. For the rating criteria, there is a lot of detail in this rating criteria. This is all within the RFP. I'm not going to read all the details on the screen, but I'm just going to go over the points. But again, it is written out in great detail within the RFP. Organizational background and experience is 20 points. Program model is 40 points. Equity and social justice is 20 points. And budget and fiscal is 15 points. Data collection is 5 points. And if necessary, if an interview is necessary, it will be worth 10 points. And again, all of this is available within the RFP in great detail for you to see. For grant assistance or application support is available for small organizations with fewer than 20 FTE, not people, but FTE, and less than $4 million operating budget. Consultants need to be contacted by July 24th. Their contact information is available within attachment E located in Zoom grants with the RFP information. So for Zoom grants, all applications will be submitted in Zoom grants. Questions from today, as well as I said, any questions submitted in the chat or asked today or submitted to me will be posted in Zoom grants. So check it regularly because it will be updated. And now, if Dina would like to give everyone a peek at the Zoom grants, just to take a look at the screen that you will see when you go to the RFP.
Hi, everyone. This is Dino. Here in the slide is the Zoom grant preview and overview. So I'll click on the Zoom grants, skip this verification, and show you all a little demo of what to expect. if everything loads correctly. Okay, so here we have the overview of the SS4 procurement. If you haven't already had a Zoom Grants account, let me zoom in actually so you can all see better. You'll first need to create a Zoom Grants account, and you would click this button here and it'll lead you to this section here where you can create a new account. And once you do that, you'll see a list of a whole bunch of open procurements that you are all welcome to apply to. But the one we're looking for is SS4. So you can click apply here, but if you don't already have an account, then you can go to preview. So for now, I'll just click preview, which was the screen that we were on initially. Here's the overview of the RFP. It lists all the summary of the information that we covered in this info session. Here is the timeline for you to note important dates. Jamie's contact information. And we have the requirements for applicants to be eligible to apply for the strategy. And then finally, at the very bottom are the attachments. Here is attachment E that Jamie was talking about, which lists all the grant providers for assistance. And then you'll also want to take note of the attachment A, which is the main RFP. This is where this is going to be what you'll be using to do the application, and has all the detailed information about the rating criteria and everything else. And then once you do that, once you open that up and study that, you can go through these summary questions and the narrative questions. This is where you will be answering all your questions. And then that's pretty much the demo. Thank you all.
Thanks, Dino. And at this point, does anyone have any questions? Trying to see. Great. I'm looking at the chat. I don't see any questions. Oh, yes. Caitlin?
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
I am wondering how much of the emphasis for this RFP is on the network building component versus delivering advocacy services, for example.
I would go ahead and I will post that question in the FAQ. The services are the most important component of this RFP. But I will go ahead and look into getting a more detailed answer for you and have it posted in the FAQ.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I can read the questions in the chat. I can read the questions in the chat. Sorry about that. So we have a question from Sujin. I apologize if I said your name incorrectly. Is there a max request per year?
There is not a max request per year. There is information about knowing how much there will not be carryover. So it is good to do a realistic budget for the program that you are applying to fund. But yeah, there is no max per year.
Lydia asked, can we focus on one population, parentheses, in our case, adult DV victims, or must we encompass more than one?
I would go ahead and read the RFP, the details of the RFP. There isn't a requirement to focus on one specific group. But again, I will post this question in the FAQ as well as a more detailed answer.
Gina Finley asked, do we need to focus on both DV, trafficking, and exploitation, or just one?
Again, that is a great question. There is, if you read the RFP, there is detail in there, but I will post that question with the FAQ with a more detailed answer.
Lalita asked, what is your approach towards CBOs providing direct services with DV clients? Can we still apply if it's one of our missions?
Ms. Lalita, can you?
Would
Yeah.
you like for me to help you out with that, Jamie?
I would love that.
Okay, this is Bianca Davis, the Resilient Communities Team Lead. So again, as Jamie mentioned before, that it's best that you look at the RFP, and the RFP has very detailed information in there. And it's up to the organizations and providers of the services to determine whether or not their particular services fit within that RFP. Can you apply? Can we still? Again, I won't tell you that. Hold on one second. I'm trying. It's moving. It moved. Hold on. Approach to. Can we still apply if? Yeah, I would definitely look at the RFP.
Thank you.
Next question. Can indirect be covered by this grant? Can it cover external contractors? Can the flexible financial assistance benefit children or just adults? So I think there's two questions in there, Jamie.
Thanks, Nafiso. So I will say this RFP is the focus population is adult survivors. For this detail of fiscal question, I'm going to get more of a detailed answer and it will be posted in the FAQ. I don't want to speak out of turn and answer that detailed of a fiscal question.
The next question is, can we start the grant in January since our funding can't overlap other funding?
So the contracting will begin in November. That is the date that is set up as of now. I don't foresee changes to it. But again, I will post the answer to this in the FAQ.
There won't be any changes to it. So it'll start in 2024.
Okay.
That was the last written questions. If anyone else has more questions, please feel free to write in the chat or, oh, there's people that are raising their hands.
Oh, yeah.
The first hand I see is Caitlin.
You already answered mine, so I'll put my hand down.
Oh.
Okay, perfect. And then next is Emil.
Hi, my name is Emil Pattison. I wanted to quickly introduce myself as a GAA provider and encourage folks to reach out if you're a small organization to get help working on your proposal, not actually writing it, but getting feedback about drafts and looking at the budget form. I also was hoping, Jamie, you could give some insight about this is organizations are being asked to provide a 5-year budget for this. And I was just looking particularly at the column in the budget that asks people to provide other funding sources for all of the different line items. And I'm just wondering how you can answer how you would approach thinking about like how organizations project what their other funding sources are going to be in 2028, 2029.
That's a great question. It can be challenging. This will be in the FAQ because I think a lot of agencies will have this question. But again, I think the keyword is projected. It's doing the best you can. And again, it will be in the FAQ section and with a more detailed answer.
And then is there an expectation that they have to name organizations name specific funders versus like community donations, other foundations, like sort of broad categories? Like any guidance around that would be super helpful. Thank you.
And that I will make a note of that for the FAQ.
Another question in the chat. We have been partially funded for previous years by this grant. Can we apply to be fully funded for this grant cycle?
So that's a good question. I can't tell you whether or not you should apply for something. I will definitely put this answer in the FAQ. But yeah, I can't, whatever is best for your agency and your programs.
If you are partially funded, you can still apply. So it'll all be determined on whether or not the committee decides to fully fund you or not.
Thank you, Bianca.
Nope.
Are we eligible to apply if we would serve a set community of survivors rather than survivors across King County?
Again, I would read the RFP. It goes into great detail of eligibility and the scope of services. And again, this will be posted in the FAQ section. But yeah, I would read the RFP and seek out the detail regarding this subject.
So just to answer that last question, there are certain questions that we're not allowed to answer. For instance, we can't tell you whether or not your program is eligible. We're definitely not supposed to do that. It's against our department's policy. So when we say check the RFP, that's the reason why. There are certain questions we cannot answer. So for instance, we cannot tell you whether or not your particular program will be able to fit that particular scope of work. It all depends on how you write that RFP. If it's a brand new program or if it's a program that's already been in existence. Again, the RFP will give you a lot of information that is needed, but there are certain questions that we cannot guide you in. It will give you an unfair advantage as opposed to your other counterparts. We don't want to give out certain information that will give anybody an unfair advantage.
Thank you, Bianca. Is there any other questions or?
Will a contract resulting from this RFP require that services be provided county-wide?
So as Bianca said, we can't, so this is a King County, the area is King County. It is available to all of King County. I will post this in the FAQ and answer this, but the RFP is open to all of King County.
Make sure that your application makes sense as well. If you can't, and it's realistic. That's what I will say. Make sure it makes sense and it's realistic. A person can serve more than one zip code, but you definitely need to make a case and show that that either make a case for it, or you need to show that you've been already serving that particular zip code in the past.
Is there a minimum required amount of client assistance funds? I don't remember reading that in the RFP.
So there is not. That is not written into the RFP. That is something that will be submitted with the program budgets in applying for the funding.
And it will be determined during the decision process and the contracting process.
Correct.
Another like follow-up question from the previous question is, will the contract resulting from this RFP require that survivors of domestic violence and survivors of sexual assault and survivors of trafficking must be served, or will the contract allow for survivors of domestic violence being served, but not survivors of sexual assault or trafficking? So does it have to be all three?
This RFP is open to all survivors. I would go again back into the RFP and read the details of it, and then do the best you can to apply for your program to apply if you find it appropriate to apply for the funding for this RFP. I'm not going to dissuade anyone from applying. But yeah, I would go back into the RFP for details around that. Were there any other questions or? Okay. Well, again, the application is up on Zoom Grants, and my contact information is within the RFP. It's in Zoom Grants. Email me with further questions. They will be posted along with answers in the FAQ. We will answer your questions to the best of our ability, but we can only give so much specific answers in our responses. It's really up to you to decide if this is appropriate for your programs. But thank you all for being here, and thank you all for the work you're doing within the community. We appreciate you so much, and thank you.